Life's a funny thing. Some of us are dealt some pretty cruddy cards, and then we're expected to just grow up. Normal. That leaves a lot of us to struggle as we navigate through life's difficult times. And if you're anything like me, you have no idea what the hell normal is. Welcome to the Wishbone Podcast with me, your host, Luka Ohana, as we discuss and share our life stories in hopes of helping each other out. So if you got 30 minutes, let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Wishbone Podcast. I'm your host, Luka. Today we're going to be kind of recapping on what the show is, where it's going, go over what we just did as far as that 4-part series interview I did with Brian Sablon, one of my freaking best buds. It was a really good interview. I really enjoyed the interview. I didn't enjoy breaking it up and releasing it in 4 parts, so we won't be doing that anymore. So instead of being 30-minute increments for the interviews, they'll be just however long the interview is. I think that's a much better, more seamless way of doing it. So it was a very cool interview. He came up with the Gray Matters question of the week, or in this case of the month, and it's what is anxiety, and is it beneficial, is it detrimental? He gave his points on it, and I tend to agree with him for a lot of that. I think life is stress, right? And stress can be good or bad. And in my opinion, as long as you get some sort of growth out of it, some sort of momentum out of it, it can't be all that bad, right? So my thinking is anxiety is just some sort of related stress. And what I mean by that is anxiety can be stressful. It can cause you some grief. You can tend to worry about things. And I think worrying without action is you're just bobbing in the water, not going anywhere. Anxiety can also be a tool. It can help you develop a plan. It can help you focus a little bit. And in my case, I always have this background anxiety of if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm making enough money, of course, if I'm being a good parent, but they kind of hone my direction and which way I want to go with things. Communication, I think, is super beneficial, and not only internal communication, but external communication with the people in your lives that can help anxiety become a productive tool in your life rather than something of a hindrance. So, yes, I think we all struggle with anxiety, and some of us do better than others, and some of us struggle with anxiety much more easily in different parts of our lives than in other parts of our lives. So I know I definitely struggle with anxiety and stress, and so while I try to come out of it positively or learn some sort of lesson from it, I do fail. I think we all do, and I think it's no secret that I fail at it. But again, communication kind of helps repair those mistakes that I make and will continue to make, and also sets us up so that it's not as powerful of a sting when that mistake happens again, and particularly with my kids. So, I just had a very powerful moment with my children. Now, to remind you guys, I have 2 boys, the loves of my life. I love them to death, and life's funny. My dad had my dad had 4 sons, but it was me and my younger brother growing up for the most part, and it was kind of cemented in my brain that he had 2 kids, and he failed with those 2 boys. That's kind of known out there, but while we do talk, my father and I, it's not the type of relationship that I want for me and my kids, and so it's kind of interesting that I get to redo this 2-son father relationship with the lessons that I hopefully have learned and have improved on. What I'm getting at, though, is I met somebody that had 2 kids of her own, a boy and a girl, and so now I find myself in this life with 4 children. Here in Hawaii, we call that hanai, where we adopt. You adopt somebody. And so I have 3 sons and a beautiful daughter, and it's been a very unique situation exploring the stepfather role, or this extended family, the non-nuclear family, if you will. And so the situation happened where the oldest child is her son, and I do struggle being a parent to him. It's something that I don't communicate in a way that is understood by him, and that could be said. My communication isn't understood by a lot of people, to be honest, but I am trying. And so he and I have had lots and lots and lots and lots of discussions about what it is to listen, why we were asking him to do certain things. And it's interesting to see his take on things versus the other three, and it's interesting to see her son and daughter's take on things versus my two sons. And I'm always trying to kind of evaluate and get in the headspace and see what's going on. And I am trying, and I'm struggling for words right now because this event that happened, this has been a month now, but this event that happened is bittersweet, and so it's very difficult to talk about. So him and his sister were arguing and bickering, and he got physical with her, and my reptilian brain thought the lesson to teach him would be to slap him in the face. Was that the answer? No, it wasn't the answer. It blew up in my face because he had no idea why he was getting smacked, even though I articulated what I was doing. It just didn't come off the lesson that I wanted it to. So, I had scolded him, told him basically, if you're going to hit your sister, then you're going to get hit. And you're going to argue with me that, yeah, maybe that's the right thing, maybe that's the wrong thing. Really what I'm trying to do is just share with you my experience and kind of what happened. So I come into the house, and both my boys are sitting on the couch, and they let me have it, man. My youngest was fighting back tears and said he was very disappointed in me and very upset. And my oldest said he had some things that had built up that he'd been wanting to say to me, but he was too afraid to tell me. I don't think he was physically afraid of me. I think he was just afraid of the reaction he would get, rightfully so. But they told me. And so the bittersweet part is while I'm in the hot seat and I'm getting scolded and being told by my kids that, in essence, they're disappointed by me, that they feel comfortable enough to tell me these things is the sweet part. And it was a 2.5-hour conversation. The five of us sat there and kind of aired our frustrations, and I quickly realized it wasn't a discussion for what's right and wrong. It was a errands of grievances, and there is no right answer, right? There's no such thing as you say this right word and this action will be produced by that. People are very complex. Communication is very complex. And so we all aired our grievances. We all cried. My son told me that he was disappointed in me, and that rocked me to my core. That's the last thing that I want to hear because I have this tremendous fear of repeating my life with my kids. So if I don't have a close communication or close relationship with my boys as adults, I failed, and I don't want to fail. I can't. My father is essentially 0 and 8 with his either extended kids or his own kids. Nobody really talks to him, and that's tremendously sad. Me as the son, I have a hard time understanding the brevity of the situation because I don't know if I miss him as a father, if that makes sense. I do love him. I know that. And I do wish we had a relationship, but I don't feel a sense of loss. As I think this through, I'm really trying to be introspective here, and I really don't say myself feeling this sense of loss. I don't know, but as of right now and over these last few years, I will be sad when he passes, but I don't know how to explain it. I look forward to him being happy, and I think that's a thought that makes me happy. But I don't look forward to us talking or see it as potential. Not that I don't want that. When we do talk on the text and phone and whatnot, it's good. I don't have any bitter resentment or anything like rolling my eyes or what I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, other than I don't want that for me and my boys. So when my son told me that, it rocked me to my core. I cried. He came over and cried. And now, mind you, my son is getting up there in age. I haven't seen him cry in a long time. He's 13 this year, and he's just a very stoic dude. Like, he's just, it's crazy. It's this teenage phase. And he even kind of set the stage by saying, I'm a teenager, so I don't let a lot of emotion, but I'm disappointed at you. And, phew, that was very difficult. So, obviously I'm doing something wrong, clearly. But that was our first conversation as a family in its entirety. So usually what I've done is I've talked to her children separately, either as a group or individually, for many hours, but we did it together. We're very close. I love them dearly. Lily, my daughter, and I are, it's just a relationship I never thought I was going to have. I never had a daughter, and I'm over the moon to have this relationship. I have William, who I love dearly as well, but I have Erwin and Graham, who are very close with me, and William and I are just struggling. So it's very hard to kind of navigate this terrain because, one thing's not like the other. Not that I want it to be, but I'm not sure how really to approach it. So, and then I approach my boys separately too, together or separate, and have spent obviously many hours with them, and we're very, very close. But this was our first time as a family unit sitting down and talking about it. And what was beautiful about this moment was the fact that they all kind of were there for each other. And while that's hurtful for me to think like I'm the outsider, I'm the other, it makes sense. They're all each other's peers. They're all the age group. They're all within 2 years of each other. And so they're very close with each other. And they communicate very similarly to each other. And this whole scenario was very bittersweet. I don't want to be the other. I don't want to be the bad guy. But in this reality, I was. And let's talk about why maybe. You could chalk it up to a lack of communication, a lack of tools on my part, a lack of... I should have walked away. There's a lot of things I should have done. But again, the sweet part of this is that the conflict created the opportunity to discuss something. And that's why, as a side note, as a caveat, conflict, I know a lot of us, including myself, struggle with the idea of conflict. But conflict can actually be a beneficial thing. And if you look forward to it as a positive thing, and your end goal is to end positively, then maybe we can do this paradigm shift. That conflict isn't this horrible thing, and we shouldn't avoid it, but rather embrace it and explore the differences, explore the conflict, and really get down to what breakdown in communication led to this conflict. And I would be I would bet that it's a breakdown in communication that caused that conflict, hands down. So anyway, it ended with us exploring a lot of different views on different things, not just the him hitting his sister or me slapping him or whatever the case is. It ended up with William, kind of exploring his feelings of feeling loss, because his father's not present. He's available, but he's just not present. And so that obviously very hard for any child. And so I noticed that when Erwin and I hugged each other and embraced each other, William actually physically turned away. And, I said, hey, is everything okay? And he said, yeah, everything's fine. But then his sister, this is why it's very cool that the four of them were together, said, no, he misses his dad. And William broke down. And so it's very easy to see the vulnerability of a child in this situation. Hell, I was that child and in that exact same situation. So the healing portion of this whole thing, while it started out very negative and you could sit there for days avoiding it because of the anxiety that it could build, really led to something beautiful. And I had known that there was a little bit of distance growing between me and my oldest son, and I keep chopping it up to the fact that it's he's a teenager and he's just more introverted, more quiet. But really that was very cathartic for both of us. I feel like there's a lot more openness between us. Now, my youngest, he's just a sweet soul right now until he's a teenager, as he says. And so he's very open and very extroverted with his feelings, whereas Erwin's, very stoic, which is totally fine. But it was nice to explore that side of him. And I have to always kind of check myself that I have, resting dick face. I don't know how it's to say it. I have this face that I don't know. I think people look at me and think I'm thinking horrific thoughts, or I have this very angry external facade, but in my mind I'm thinking like, I can't wait to water my plants, or what Pokemon does that look like? I have no idea. Just random thoughts are going through my head that have nothing to do with me being angry. But my face, I've noticed, it's a RDF, right? For sure. So it's been a struggle, but I will say, if I was not open to the healing ability of conflict, right? If I wasn't open to that side of conflict, and I really was shut down, maybe as my father would be, because what's striking to me is that conversation would never have happened with me and my father, ever. I tried to have conversations like that with me and my father, and I was physically struck down, right? So, or called stupid, or who the fuck are you, and all this other really BS, right? And now being a father, the inclination was there. It was weird, but I had this kind of knee-jerk reaction to kind of shut off and say, look, you guys are kids. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. I'm the adult. But that has been my saving grace, I think, is the fact that I tend to steer into the slide, if you will. I tend to check myself more often than not. And am I thinking the right thing? Am I right? Am I the parent? Am I the adult in this situation? And it's these counter thoughts that I think are allow me to have come out of my childhood and be who I am, because I truly believe I would have been this alcoholic person in and out of jail with anger issues, with children that reflected my childhood and looked like me both internally and externally. So I think to bring it back home is that anxiety, while yes, it is stressful and it can be negative, if you can check yourself and say, what is it about this that can be positive? What can I take out of this to make me grow, to get some momentum out of this? Then I think you're being selfish in the greatest way possible. You are thinking about yourself in this situation, but you're thinking of yourself to give yourself momentum. I think stagnation is the crime, right? I don't know how else to say that, but if you're stagnant in life and you're not moving toward progress, whatever that progress is for you, that's the crime, right? The lessons are going to keep coming, because that's life. Life is hard, and I tend to notice that, at least my belief is that you're going to start to flip the script a little bit and say, now life is against me. Life isn't against anybody. Life is life. It is the reality of our universe is life is hard. You can roll the dice, and some people might have an easier life than others, but you can't change that. What you can change is, as conflicts come up in your life, how do you approach the end result of that conflict, right? If you can gain some sort of perspective, some sort of progress out of that, some sort of momentum, right on, perfect. Then you're doing the right thing. And I will say, coming out of that scenario where we sat down, it was a very hard place to be. It was very uncomfortable, but it should have happened. It was a great thing that happened, and I was humbled and humiliated and flared out, but in a great way, right? So, we'll wrap it up there, but I would be very curious to hear from you guys if you guys have any scenarios where maybe you checked yourself and it was for the better, right? You had a knee-jerk reaction that you fought and you went the other way. And so I'd be very curious to hear about that. As we come out of that scenario that I just discussed, where me and my children had to sit down, and I think that should be the norm. At least in my family, I want that to be the norm. If we have issues, let's talk about it. And I am a long talker, and I think that's punishment in itself. I think a lot of my kids wouldn't want to sit down and talk with me just because of how long I can be. I think they enjoy the conversations. The exercise of us exploring philosophical questions or thought experiments has been very, very cool. We kind of bond for sure over that. But, what I want to say is conflict is going to happen. There was a scenario where my sons and I went to a farmer's market, and I wanted, I always am kind of giving my sons real life experience. So I wanted them to ask for what we're buying and to pay and to get the change and all that. And it went really well. They were shy and nervous at first, but they did it. And then I was trying to teach them how to count money back. And somehow in that discussion, my son had said something, and I kind of laughed, like, oh, okay, well, that's easy. But it was taken as a very negative thing. He was very upset, and he was upset, and he voiced his displeasure with that. What took me aback is that I wasn't in any sense trying to be rude or anything. So we had our little mini talk about it. And the whole point of me bringing this up is the more you can express conflict and end in a positive solution, the more comfort you're teaching your kids, or you're teaching people around you, that you are that type of person who's capable of letting someone be vulnerable in conflict and have it result in a positive outcome. I would love that. So I don't know if I actually exude that very well. I'm a very opinionated person, and I don't always check myself. So I do have knee-jerk reactions that I fully follow, and I die on those little molehills alone, right? And so I look back and I'm like, what the hell was that about? Why did I defend such a stupid thing? We could go on and on about that. I'm not sure, but so if we can just get through conflict into a positive thing, I think it'll be good. My sons are going to realize that, hey, we can have a discussion with my father where I disagree completely with him, and everything's going to be fine. We kind of move into this whole political atmosphere we're living in now. Whether you're a Trump fan or a Biden fan or neither, whatever the case is, we're not in a situation as a country where conflict is regarded as a good thing. And it should be. I mean, that's what this country was built on. The fact that you can like Trump and the fact that I cannot like Trump does not mean that we're enemies automatic at all. It just means that we have a discussion to have, not an argument or debate. You're not going to prove me anything, right? Because that's not the point. I might take what you say and actually evolve my opinion on things, but the intent of that conversation isn't to do that. The intent is to express your opinion and me respecting your opinion and vice versa. So I do think conflict should be a good thing, and I look for conflict. When it comes to work, one thing that I excelled at with work are having those difficult conversations with either a write-up or whatever the case is. And I excelled at it only because it was never, in my opinion, it's just a tool to move on. So I think the fact that I had this message of, you're fine, tomorrow we'll do this together, whatever you need to make this happen so we can improve together, then that's what we'll do. And I think they saw that and they accepted that and they realized what was going on, in the sense that it was just a learning tool rather than a punishment. So we're at work, it is what it is. If you want to consider it a punishment, that's fine, but we can move on from that together. So now we're on to the next segment of the show. It's Gray Matters, or Matters of the Gray. And this week's question is, what was one conflict or one incident in your childhood that really marked your childhood as far as what you would consider the overall feel of your childhood? And to counter that, what was one incident that really influenced you from your parents that really marked your childhood? So the good and the bad, and kind of how they could explain your childhood as a whole, looking at the highs and the lows. And with that, I'll leave you guys to it. Well, that's it, folks. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure to check out the show notes. As always, let's give them something to smile about, and we'll see you guys next week.